They said miracles don't happen twice. But when Ethan Cole walked into that little cafe on a gray morning, the universe quietly disagreed. He didn't know he was walking toward the only thing that could save him. The letter sat in his car. His goodbye, signed and sealed. He had planned everything with the precision of a man who'd lost the will to improvise. Coffee first, he thought, out of habit. Something normal before disappearing. The smell of cinnamon and baked bread drew him inside. The bell above the door chimed softly, and for a brief second he felt like the world noticed him again. "Good morning," the barista said. Her name tag read Isabel. She had flour on her sleeve, a soft tiredness in her eyes, the kind that comes from surviving more than from living. "What can I get you?" "Black coffee," Ethan said quietly, "and whatever you recommend." "The muffins are fresh," she smiled, brushing her hair back. "Blueberry and lemon glaze. My daughter says they taste like happy mornings." He almost smiled. "Then I'll have one happy morning." Isabel laughed softly, not realizing how literal his words were. She turned away, and sunlight streamed through the big windows, catching the tiny flour dust floating in the air. For the first time in months, Ethan noticed light looked beautiful again. He didn't know why. When she placed the cup before him, he nodded politely. "Thank you." "You're welcome," she said, and walked back toward the counter, where a little girl sat coloring on a piece of paper. Brown pigtails, pink sweater, tongue poking out in concentration. Ethan sipped his coffee, pretending not to stare. The girl suddenly looked up, straight at him, eyes wide. "Mommy," she said loudly. "That's the man from my dream." Isabel froze mid-step. "Lila, sweetheart, don't say that." But the child was already climbing down from her chair, dragging her crayons with her. She stopped at Ethan's table and stared up at him with the kind of fearless curiosity only children have. "You were crying," she said softly. "In a big, empty house. You said her name over and over." Ethan's cup trembled. "What name?" "Emily," the girl whispered. The room went silent. Isabel's hand flew to her mouth. Ethan felt his heart stop. "What did you say?" he asked, voice cracking. "Emily?" Lila repeated. "She told me to find you. She said you forgot how to smile." The coffee spilled as Ethan's hand gave out. Isabel rushed over, mortified. "I'm so sorry, sir. She has such an imagination." "No," Ethan said, standing. "How does she know that name?" Isabel looked lost. "She doesn't. She can't." Lila blinked up at him. "She said she's happy now. She doesn't hurt anymore." "She says you're supposed to help people again." Ethan sat down, the air knocked out of him. "Emily was my daughter," he whispered. "She died 2 years ago." Isabel went pale. Lila tilted her head. "She knows," she said simply. "She talks to me sometimes in my dreams. She said she misses your laugh." The dam broke. The man who hadn't cried in years buried his face in his hands and wept. Isabel stood there, paralyzed, before reaching out and putting a hand on his arm. "I'm so sorry," she murmured. "I had no idea." "Neither did I," he said through tears. "Until now." For an hour, the cafe forgot what time was. Ethan told them about Emily, her laughter, her love for drawing butterflies, how she called him her superhero even when cancer made him too weak to lift her. Isabel told him about losing her husband in a construction accident, about debt, and nights she held her daughter tight just to feel less alone. Two strangers, tied by grief and the miracle sitting between them, spoke like old friends who didn't need small talk. "I was going to end it today," Ethan confessed quietly. Isabel froze. "Don't say that." "It's true. I left a note. I just wanted coffee before I left the world behind. But your daughter..." She looked at me like my daughter used to. "Maybe that's not a coincidence," Isabel whispered. "Maybe some doors are meant to stay open." He nodded slowly. "Maybe." From that day, Ethan came back every morning. Sometimes, he just sat with his laptop, working quietly. Sometimes he helped Lila with her coloring, pretending not to notice when Isabel smiled watching them. Over time, the routine became something sacred. He laughed more, slept better, even dreamed again. Small things, but everything for a man who'd forgotten how. One morning, he brought a small pendant for Lila, a butterfly of silver and glass. "It was Emily's favorite," he said softly. Lila gasped. Now it's mine, she said, hugging him. Isabel wiped her eyes. Ethan smiled at her. She reminds me that love doesn't stop. It just changes shape. Weeks turned into months. The cafe got busier, brighter. Ethan quietly paid for renovations and new equipment, telling Isabel it was an investment in good coffee. He also reactivated his foundation, Emily's Light, which had been dormant since his daughter's death. I need someone who understands struggle, he told Isabel. Someone with heart. Will you help me run it? I make muffins, Ethan, she laughed nervously. I'm not a foundation director. You make people feel safe, he said simply. That's rarer than any degree. Against her own caution, she said yes. Together, they built something that mattered. Funds for hospital families, therapy programs for grieving parents, art projects for sick children. Ethan started showing up at hospitals again, reading stories to kids in oncology wards. The first time he did, he cried in the hallway. Isabel held his hand until he stopped shaking. You're doing it, she whispered. You're helping people again. He smiled weakly. Guess Emily was right. As the months passed, the three of them became inseparable. Lila called him Mr. Ethan, but sometimes slipped and said, Dad. He never corrected her. Isabel watched the way he treated her daughter, with patience, joy, reverence, and felt something blooming where grief used to live. One night after closing, Ethan stayed to help wipe tables. The lights were low, the world outside silver with rain. You shouldn't be doing this, Isabel said. You own half the city. And yet, he said, this is the first place I've felt real in years. They stood quietly for a while, close enough to feel each other breathe. Ethan, she whispered, we come from different worlds. Grief made them one, he said softly. I'm not asking for perfection, just don't push me away if I reach for you. She didn't. That winter, a snowstorm hit the city. The cafe closed early, and the three of them stayed inside, wrapped in blankets, telling stories until Lila fell asleep. Isabel watched Ethan gently adjust the child's blanket, his expression tender and haunted all at once. You miss her every day, don't you? Every second, he said, but I'm starting to believe she's still here. Maybe not the way I wanted, but in ways I can't deny. Like through Lila, Isabel said. Like through you, he answered. The silence after that wasn't awkward. It was home. Spring came. The foundation expanded. They organized charity events, hospital visits, and family workshops. News outlets started calling Ethan the compassionate CEO, but he ignored the headlines. One evening, after a successful fundraiser, he invited Isabel and Lila to his late daughter's favorite spot, a hill overlooking the ocean. Emily used to chase the sunset here, he said the sky was God's painting. He placed a small lantern in the sand, lighting it with trembling hands. Lila clapped. It's pretty, she said. It's for her, Ethan whispered. Isabel knelt beside him. You kept your promise. You helped people. I couldn't have done it alone. You weren't supposed to. The sun dipped, painting the water gold. Lila ran along the shore, her laughter echoing against the waves. Isabel and Ethan stood side by side, the wind tangling her hair into his coat. Do you ever wonder, she asked, why she picked us? Because we both needed saving, he said. And maybe Emily knew that the only way to heal me was to remind me how to love again. A tear slipped down Isabel's cheek. She did more than that. What do you mean? She gave Lila a father. Ethan's breath caught. He turned toward her slowly. She didn't look away. And she gave me a reason to wake up, Isabel added. He reached out, touched her hand gently. Then maybe the miracle wasn't her message, he said. Maybe it's what we did with it. That night, under a sky scattered with stars, they stood as Lila released a paper lantern into the air. It floated higher, glowing softly like a tiny sun. It's going to her, Lila whispered. Ethan smiled, tears glinting in his eyes. Yeah, sweetheart, he said. She'll see it. Years later, people still talked about the man who rebuilt his heart through kindness and a little girl's dream. But Ethan never told the story like that. When asked what changed him, he always said the same thing. A stranger's daughter looked at me, and saw the man my child believed I could be. Because some miracles don't come in blinding light or holy voices, they come in small cafes, in children's whispers, in the quiet collision of broken people who unknowingly save each other.